like Uncharted a lot. I like it so much that I've replayed each game an average of 4 times, which is 3.5 times more than I typically replay video games. I like it so much that whenever I hear someone else on this website casually mention it, I'm hit with a sudden jolt of confusion for a minute. Because if you're not constantly praising the series every chance you get, I just always assume you haven't played it yet. I like these games so much that I've dedicated the past month to playing all of them on this channel. And after that nice refresher, I'm in the mood to rank all 5 games and go over what I like and what I really like. Yes, I said 5. Lost Legacy also counts as an Uncharted game, even if it does leave out the best characters. Just real quick before we get into the thick of it, let me reiterate once more that I enjoy all of these games, because in order to accurately rank them, I'm gonna need to criticize them pretty heavily. Against video games in general, every last one is a certified 5 out of 5 for me. I can't condone missing out on any of them, but compared to each other, there are just some things that are not what they could be. Bring it! When I first played Uncharted 1, I thought it was the best game ever made by human hands. 4 years later, after replaying it for the 3rd or 12th time, I realized that 2019 me really knew what he was talking about. Swinging across ledges, getting into shootouts with pirates, digging up ancient cursed artifacts, everything that makes Uncharted cool started right here. Naturally, as the first entry in a series would tend to do, Drake's Fortune is a lot more shallow and reserved than the games that came after it. The combat is clunky and basic, the animation and voice acting is a little rough, most of the locations are unremarkable and indistinct, but it's the introductions to iconic characters and great story moments that keep you coming back for that next playthrough, even when there are far better games in the series. That's not to imply that Drake's Fortune isn't great by any means, it's just been so completely outclassed in every way by the masterpieces that precede it, to the point where a phenomenal adventure now feels like a broken alpha build of a better game. It lacks the variety of Uncharted 2, the spectacle of Uncharted 3, and the storyline of Uncharted 4, but it's a testament to the greatness of the series that even such a small beginning is still fun to replay. Uncharted 2 is a sequel like Spider-Man 2, Shrek 2, or Ace Attorney 2, where it completely blows the original out of the water, doubling down on everything that makes it great and dialing it up to 1,000,000. Uncharted 1 took place on the same island the whole time? Okay, let's have Uncharted 2 send Nate all around the globe. The original game had a forgettable secondary antagonist with an implied connection to the protagonist? Well, in the sequel, he's gonna betray Nate on screen to really make the audience despise him. Drake's Fortune started out with a lackluster shootout with some pirates. Among Thieves opens with a bloody mess of a man waking up on a train and scrambling to climb away as it slides off a cliff. Many players insist that Uncharted 2 has the best story of the first 3 games, but I think what they really mean to compliment is the character writing, not necessarily the plot itself. The core theme it poses is the morality of killing. Nathan Drake is portrayed as a virtuous thief, perfectly fine with stealing and betrayal, but never injuring people who've done nothing wrong. Lazarevic, on the other hand, is so unfazed by taking lives that he'll murder his own men as an intimidation tactic. Where this dichotomy kind of falls apart, though, is after Nathan Drake spends the whole adventure shooting hundreds of people in the face. Even the villain points out that he kills more humans in a week than most people meet in their lifetime. The key scene where he refuses to finally pull the trigger on Lazarevic seems heroic, until you realize that not 5 minutes ago, he was unloading a whole magazine into his chest just before the final boss battle. What the writing lacks in logic, though, it more than makes up for in memorable characters. Elena always tries to be forgiving and kind and almost pays the ultimate price for it. Chloe is constantly pushing Nate to prioritize themselves over the lives of others. Nathan Drake is struggling to walk the line of thievery and heroism. Harry is so intentionally obnoxious, Lazarevic eventually just offs him. The locations are more varied, the writing is elevated, the action is more intense. It truly is the 2 towers of the Uncharted series. Drake's Deception doesn't have the best puzzles in the series, it doesn't have the best story in the series, but while it doesn't do anything particularly the best, it does everything consistently well, averaging out to be the top game of them all. It's not afraid to completely veer off from the typical Uncharted gameplay, for better or for worse. Sometimes you're chasing down a caravan on a horse like a cowboy film, sometimes you're walking in circles in the desert for 13 minutes straight. Sometimes you're free running through the streets chasing a bad guy, sometimes you're milling around in slow motion while tripping on drugs. Nathan does that a lot more often than you would expect. The melee combat is by far the most fleshed out it's ever been. You can grab enemies and shove them off a cliff, push people out of windows. Sometimes Nate will automatically pick up a nearby object and bonk someone over the head with it. Different enemy types require new strategies to defeat them, counterattacks, dodges, combos. There's so much entertainment in just beating up scores of generic bad guys that the opening chapter is just an all-out brawl with waves and waves of low-tier enemies. I think Drake's Deception holds the record for the most intense action scenes. While the next game has battles that are quiet but personal, Uncharted 3 goes all in on bombastic action and high stakes. Falling planes, sinking ships, crumbling cities. Calmer, more focused boss fights would work better in a more story-driven game, but these intense, large-scale battles do more benefit to the gameplay than harm to the story. It's intense enough to keep you playing again for the 9th time, and it ends with enough sentiment to wrap up the Nathan Drake collection on a nice note. Uncharted 4 is the most ambitious story in all of Uncharted, and the best plot I've experienced in any game ever. Even now, after knowing half the script by heart, I still stopped and watched every last cutscene with wide eyes and full interest. It's just overflowing with amazing one-liners, great character moments, and legendary comebacks.
Nathan Drake is a legend. I shot the man who told me that.
Know what I love about partying with a bunch of crooks?
What's that?
Nobody cares if you smoke indoors.
Thanks for saving me. Again.
I almost didn't this time.
You think I'm just going to let you walk away?
That'd be the wise thing to do.
Last I checked, we're all a bunch of thieves, digging around where we shouldn't.
The trouble with spending all your skill points on the plot, though, is that it deals a huge blow to the gameplay budget. The parts where nothing story-related is happening are kind of lacking. Mostly because unlike the 2 entries that came before it, the whole adventure is back to taking place on a single island. These games are at their best when they send you on a worldwide expedition. In the span of just 22 chapters, Drake's Deception will take you from London to Cartagena to France to Syria to Yemen to the middle of the ocean to the Rub al Khali Desert to the lost city of Ubar. But once you hit chapter 13 of A Thief's End and wash up on Libertalia, you're staying there for the remainder of the story. That's almost half the game being played in the same setting. But the obnoxious amount of flashbacks and blatant inconsistency with the rest of the series doesn't even put a dent in the absolute gold that is the story. Every single character has clear goals and motivations that change as they interact with each other. None of these people actually want the treasure itself, but merely something personal that comes with it. And when they each finally have a chance to snatch the gold, every last one of them chooses to turn away empty-handed. Players with no prior connection to the series will see a blockbuster action movie highlighted by some decently fun gameplay. Those who've witnessed Nathan Drake's adventures firsthand will see the best conclusion I could possibly hope for to the most phenomenal saga of video games yet on this planet. Uncharted 5 is a great example of a single flaw souring an otherwise excellent experience. The story starts out kind of lame, but gets better as it goes. The new mechanics from A Thief's End are added to and expanded upon. The puzzles are in the running for best in the entire series, but the way the chapters are divided totally obliterates the replay value. It's about the same length as your typical Uncharted adventure, but instead of being split into 20 plus different chapters, it's divided into just 9, each one lasting way longer than it should. The one bold thing that Lost Legacy attempts is the mini open world section known as Chapter 4, with a giant open landscape to travel through and dozens of challenges and enemies to take on. The main collectible to be on the lookout for here is the golden animal tokens. They're already marked on your map and they only take like half an hour to find, but the reward you get for it is just so OP that I cannot stress enough how worth it is. The Queen's Bracelet. Any and all treasure on that save file will now buzz as you pass it, on this chapter or any other, which is a feature I kind of now wish was the default for every entry in the series. If this kept up throughout the entire game, just chapter after chapter of giant areas to explore, I probably would have rated it much higher. But unfortunately, this type of gameplay leaves as quickly as it shows up and goes back to being an interesting but visually unvarying adventure, with a hateable villain, yet low stakes. Is it the best in the series? Certainly not. But it's a fun spin-off starring familiar characters, and it solidifies the potential of how amazing an open-world Uncharted game could be. If you're an Uncharted fan holding out on it because you miss Nathan Drake, you're making a silly decision. And if you're not an Uncharted fan, thank you for making it this far into the video. So there it is, every Uncharted game ranked, except for the card game, because it looks pretty bad, and the Golden Abyss, because that one isn't real. And now that we're officially done with FUNCHARTED February, we can move on to the next great project about to launch on this channel, FUNCHARTED March.